Hey everyone. Welcome to my live this week. I am chatting with my friend Magdalena Wszelaki. She is the author of a book called Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. Here it is in all its glory. It's quite beautiful. It's huge too, it's heavy, but it's just so well illustrated. It's gorgeous. I feel like it's one of these to add to the collection. And Magdalena is here right now, so I will have her join right into our conversation, which is all about estrogen dominance and what happens when we are estrogen dominant, what it even means. Hey, can you hear me and see me okay? Oh, I feel like we're having a bit of a connection issue. Hold on, let me make sure that my
Hi there.
connection Hi.
Hi.
I'm so glad that the connection works.
Yeah. I was trying to use my microphone with this, but I'm sorry, but this is only the second Instagram live I've ever done. So I'm still learning.
Here.
Yeah, I'm here. That's all that matters.
Amazing. That's what matters. And now we can deliver the goods. I was just going on and on about your beautiful book. It's so gorgeous. Yeah. I love it. I love a good illustration, man.
Yeah.
And it's full color, everyone.
And that was one of the benefits of going with self-publishing, even though it really is a royal pain in the butt to produce a book by yourself. But I also know that if I had to go through a publisher, they wouldn't allow us to do all these beautiful illustrations. And so, so I'm kind of glad that we did that way. And even it was worth the pain, that's for sure.
I agree. When I saw it, I thought, oh man, if I do another book, I really am so tempted to do the self-publishing. And I was thinking, I probably could hit Magdalena up for some advice on what to do. So I'm really, really pumped for us to talk today because I've had quite a few questions on my Instagram post and via my DMs as well. And I feel like we talked about this a little bit on the podcast, but the understanding of what estrogen dominance is there's just a lot of misunderstanding. And I think that that's a good place for us to start. And, maybe you can go into a little bit about, your experience and we can talk through what this actually is, what this imbalance actually is and is not.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the first big thing that you have a sign of estrogen dominance, and I will suspect this probably 99% of your community is having period problems, right?
Mostly,
irregular
generally
periods, painful periods, super heavy periods, having no periods, and spotting in the mid-cycle. I mean, those are some of the symptoms that you are having estrogen dominance. But then couple that with a few other things such as fibroids, fibrocystic breast and painful breast, right? Or having lumps on your breast, right? Mm-hmm. Couple that with women with a history of endometriosis, women who have problems with gallbladder issues. It's an interesting relationship between estrogen dominance and gallbladder. Gallbladder can thicken the bile, which can end up in creating deposits from the stones that then they can, gallbladder can be removed. But it's also gallbladder removed that can also lead to estrogen dominance because the bile also binds up estrogen. So it's an interesting two-way relationship. But furthermore,
it's never easy, is it, Magdalena?
I think the solutions are pretty simple. So
yes, I agree.
That's the good news about that, right? What else? So, if you have things like varicose veins that are very prominent on your face, right? Like, you look at your thing and you go like, oh, I got some spots here, but then, what about those red veins that are popping here, right? That could be due to estrogen dominance. Women with melasma, which is just a really quite unnerving symptom because, we spend then time and money on really thinning our skin by putting all sorts of different bleaches on it. So melasma can manifest in form of brown spotting above your lips here. It also can be around here. When I was on birth control, I was only on birth control pills for 6 months. Did you have that too?
Same, melasma all over my face from almost my entire 20s from being
wow.
It was a nightmare.
One of the most painful thing was that, so I had it right above my lips. Where did you have it? Right too.
It was all here and above my lips.
Yeah.
I constantly spent so much time. I've spent so much money on lasers. It was crazy.
Yeah. And and the thing is, it all comes back and it's expensive to do. But most importantly, your body is saying like, hey, something isn't quite right. I still remember, I was going through a divorce with my that time husband. And when I showed up in court, it was very amicable and all that, but I think he just still wanted to be like, and he looks at me and he's like, "Are you growing a mustache?" You know, and I remember it was like one of the most painful things to hear.
Yes.
Especially when you go through a divorce.
Divorce.
You're already very sensitive to
That's
everything.
not how you want to go out. No way.
Yeah. So that was not the best highlight of that moment. But you know, it's but I mean, he said it. Well, a lot of people will think it, right? And the truth is that when you resolve estrogen dominance, like if you really permanently want to get rid of this, I mean, I am wearing some makeup right now, but I don't have more makeup here covering anything up. It's all gone.
Yeah.
It's not really a symptom, but I think it's an indication that if you've been highly reactive to birth control pills and you are just, like I was only on birth control pills for 6 months and then I felt so ill on them. And so, with all the discoloring and just feeling and putting on weight and just feeling so off, and I immediately got off them, and I didn't have the knowledge that I have today, but I've read about this later, that when you are responding that way to birth control pills, it's an indication your body's just not breaking down estrogen in a good way, and that's part of the reason why that's an early indication. It's not a symptom, but it's an early indication that you might have a tendency to be estrogen dominant. And I can talk about my own history just in a second. And then just to wrap it up, I mean, on the more serious note of things, thyroid nodules, but also estrogenic cancers so estrogen receptor positive breast cancers, ovarian cancers, uterine cancers, and thyroid cancers, as well as lung cancers in non-smokers can all be due to estrogen dominance. So a pretty wide array of different symptoms, and almost every woman suffers from them in some way or another, right? African American women, 85% of African American women at one point in their life will develop fibroids. Yeah. And oftentimes we don't even know that we have a fibroid. And as much as fibroids are they are not cancerous, it's not uncommon for women to start off with fibroids and then something else developing later on, right? And so, as much as I call them benign symptoms, those are just early symptoms. Your body is sending signals that you need some help for it not to go any further down the road. And, when you ask me about my own personal story, so I have a tendency, like what I alluded to, I have a tendency to be very estrogenic. I've suffered from estrogen dominance as far as I remember. So like reaction to birth control pills, always having terrible periods, lying on the floor for the first day or two with painkillers next to my bed. And, if I ever ran out, that would be like more anxiety from not having the painkillers rather than anxiety from the period itself.
Relatable.
Like melasma, right? And then, later in my 20s and 30s, it was all about lumpy breasts, very painful breast. Always a lot of swelling in my fingers, so much so I couldn't take my rings off. So not swelling, but it's like bloating, right? Mm-hmm. Bloating on the feet. Like I would travel, for example, I'll take a flight somewhere and I'll have so much of swelling in my limbs that I couldn't put my shoes back on, couldn't take rings off, right? So those are some of the things. I think and a lot of mood swings. Estrogen dominance, especially like around your period, it's not unusual for women who tend to be highly estrogenic to go on rampages, tarnish relationships with the people we love the most or respect a lot. And they can obviously impact personal relationships, work relationships with colleagues, with our, superior bosses or whatever, so those are but I think that the real wake up moment for me came when I started having a lot of hair loss. That wasn't due to thyroid problems. It was due to, I was then diagnosed with estrogen dominance. And then I realized, like, wow, this is something that I really need to fix, because it's like, I think it's a lot of times is the things that really impact how we look, or how can really move the needle for us, right? For many of us. But in couple that, I think the last thing I would just say is, it's the fact that it's both sides of my family have been having a lot of estrogenic cancers. I have estrogenic cancer on both sides of my family. So not surprisingly, when I ran my DNA testing, I went to the consultant to ask or to get some clarity on some other issues. And she wrote the report up and she sent it to me, and she said, that other thing, that's not what you need to be worried about. You need to be worried about your estrogen problems and your estrogen metabolism. So, you know, and that explains why both sides of my family, I have aunts who passed away from all sorts of forms of estrogenic cancers. And for those of you who are interested, I'm talking here specifically about the COMT gene, COMT. There's 5 COMT genes, and I have a mutation, double mutation on 3 of them, and half on the other. So basically 75% of my body's native ability to detox estrogen is compromised. And that explains, you know, why I tend to be very sensitive. If I go on the vacation somewhere there is a little bit of gluten and coffee and wine, you know, I do come back with a horrible period, a lot of bloating. You know, my melasma starts coming back, especially with the sun, and my period is from hell. And so, you know, and that explains why this, because I'm just not metabolizing estrogen as effectively as other people. But, you know, you just learn how to deal with it.
Oh my God. Yes, you do. You have. I was there. So this brings up a lot of things. I think the first is what you were saying before. It's so important for everyone who's watching, and if you're paying attention to this, that you're looking at these signals from your body. Like, you're actually paying attention to them over the years, because it really is telling you something. It's usually speaking in this language you don't quite understand, but you notice a pattern, as you said, Magdalena, over time, in the symptoms that start to show up, and you'll notice them cyclically as well too. And, you know, the other thing I wanted to mention too is menstrual migraines or headaches. Yes. You know, like these kinds of extreme symptoms in the lead up to your period oftentimes are, you know, a sign of that too. There were a few questions about, how did you heal your melasma? I mean, it takes time. I was going to say that it's taken me years, and in the sun, it'll still show up a little bit, but it's, you know, completely changed. And one of the ways to do that is to address the estrogen dominance issue, and to start ovulating more consistently. If you're not ovulating, producing more progesterone, because progesterone has the exact opposite effect on your skin, which is so nice. And, you know, as you get older, obviously this becomes a little bit harder because you're not ovulating as consistently, you're in perimenopause. But if you're younger, that's what you need to really focus on. All your energy on is having consistent ovulatory cycles so that you can make more progesterone. But like, what I would love to talk about is the fact that there's so much misinformation, like I said before, about what estrogen dominance is with regard to how much estrogen is estrogen dominance. And, you know, the fact that you know, it's caused by multiple different things, and that you can also have low estrogen and still be estrogen dominant, because it's the relationship between estrogen and progesterone that determines, you know, the quote unquote dominance.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And so there is, you know, it's just, before I forget, on the melasma question, I will say that it's like exactly what you said, address the estrogen dominance underlying cause. But the other thing is also a topical thing, which is really great. There is a mushroom called tremella, Tremella, tremella. And there are various companies that make them. And so it's got fantastic efficacy on removing browning spots on the skin. Amazing. But it's an external application, a topical application that works best when combined with dealing with estrogen dominance on the inside, right? So food and supplementation can really help. Yeah. Okay, so about different types of estrogen dominance, exactly. So there is definitely there's various forms of estrogen dominance. Let's talk about 2 of them. So one is like to what you said about, can you be low on estrogen and still be estrogen dominant? The answer is yes. And one thing I wanted to say, you know, before we dive into details, is that let's not demonize estrogens or estrogen as a hormone, because you and I will not be here having this conversation and being cohesive and being able to sit up straight and have muscle strength and healthy bones and cognitive function, right? And you guys won't be able to listen to this if you didn't have sufficient estrogen levels. So that is what makes us women. And it's vital to your cycles to have sufficient estrogen levels. The problem with estrogen, one form of estrogen dominance, is the way you break down estrogens really makes a big difference. Yes. And so, you know, one analogy that you can maybe relate to is like if you're going on a hike and hiking along a river, And this river is like, imagine the whole river is your estrogen, but in the middle of the river, there's this little bank, right? And that bank separates the water in the liver to a clean stream and a dirty stream. And that's exactly what happens with estrogen dominance, is that bank is your liver. And the liver then separates estrogens to protective and good metabolites. It breaks it down innovatively, or it breaks it down to those really antagonistic metabolites that cause all the symptoms that we're talking about here. So that is the first form of estrogen dominance. And so can you be low on estrogen and yet be breaking them down in an unfavorable way? Absolutely.
Yeah,
you can. And that's the reason why, if you think about it, women who are, for example, in their 50s and 60s, they have low estrogen, right? But they also have the highest demographic having breast cancers, estrogen receptor positive breast cancers. Why? They're low on estrogen. Why would they have an estrogenic cancer? And the reason is that they're breaking down those estrogens in a terrible way. And most of the time is because as we age, and especially if we don't support the liver on a regular basis, that can cause estrogen dominance. The second form of estrogen dominance is when you have certain level of estrogen, whether high or low, but the more important issue is how much progesterone do you have to oppose it, right? Or to work with it in sync. And so think of it as like, I call it balanced partners. So it's a little bit like, if you go out for dinner with friends and there is this couple that he's like aggressive and over talkative and takes over the conversations. She's like sitting there like a little mouse, timid, right? These kind of couples. And it's kind of jarring, right? It's like, And so that's exactly what happens when you go one partner who is overly aggressive and talkative, which is in the case of estrogen being too high, and then that timid partner, that low progesterone, right? It doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. And so bringing up your progesterone levels through ovulation, through vitamin C, through vitamin E, through zinc, getting that from food and supplements can really be a wonderful way of rebalancing those.
Yes. Thank you so much for saying that. And someone said here, what's a good ratio with estrogen? Or sorry, hold on. We'll get to that in a second because I don't really focus on the ratios too much. But I believe I'm estrogen dominant. However, my gynecologist has never even mentioned this. And I have a lot of thoughts on it because they will not, just so you all know. I mean, generally speaking, if you go to a conventional medical doctor, they don't necessarily believe in all of this. And yet there is a lot of research to show this. And exactly what Magdalena said, if your liver isn't working the way it's supposed to, this can push estrogens down the pathways that are more undesirable. If your gut isn't working well, it can also do something kind of similar to that. You don't deactivate and excrete estrogen as well as you should. And then, of course, the environmental overload as well of these xenoestrogens, they're problematic too, and they'll never show up on blood tests. But your doctors are not really going to look at all of this. And what's most important for everyone to know is that you have a lot of control over this. I mean, Magdalena has laid out an incredible plan in her book. Both of us talk about this extensively because it's a huge problem in our modern society, and yet it's often so overlooked. And I think the other thing too is to talk about the fact that there are multiple estrogens, guys, in the estrogen family. Estrogen is not just estrogen. There are multiple different types of estrogen. So it's important to keep all of that in mind as well. And just know that you don't need a diagnosis necessarily. You have a lot of the symptoms that can tell you a lot, and you can make changes based on, everything that Magdalena's talked about in her book. I don't know if you have thoughts on that. I've got lots of more thoughts on it, but I'm sure you have thoughts too on the doctor side of things, and maybe talk about your diagnosis or how this came to be.
So, I'll say the first thing is when I was in private practice, I'm not anymore, but when I was for several years, and I had women walking in with, lab work printed out and from their doctors. Yeah. And they'll say, what this lady said just now, my doc says everything is looking fine, right? And it was really, it's kind of actually mind-boggling to me that someone goes to medical school, specializes in endocrinology, understands women's cycles, and yet will order reports like labs like that and be okay with that. So first of all, like when you do when you do blood testing, right? Like how many doctors actually will tell you, make sure you test it when you are, after your ovulation, or like, do they ask you like, did you test it when you're just before your period? Because hey, guess what? Your hormones are going to be very different And the ranges also will be very different depending on which part of the cycle you're in. Nobody asked you that question.
Right.
And then, so then, you know, I mean, we can talk about testing for a long time, but I just make it short that blood really doesn't show you very accurate readings and the status of your hormonal health when it comes to steroid hormones, the sex hormones, such as cortisol, DHEA, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, right? It just doesn't. And so in order to have more accurate readings, I'm a much bigger fan of saliva or urine. Urine is great, from Dutch, DUTCH. Do you order that, Nicole?
Mm-hmm. All
Dutch,
the time. Yeah.
right.
It's so helpful.
You
I
guys
mean,
can order that
I
too,
sort of,
Nicole.
you know, I kind of work with what people have got. So a lot of the times people can get covered blood testing, which is fine, you know, kind of for a general picture. But I agree with you that the Dutch testing is so helpful.
Yeah, saliva I also like because saliva. So the only shortcoming of Dutch is that it doesn't really show you proper progesterone levels. It's an estimate. So I like the saliva testing because it does show you progesterone. So I wish there was one that was like doing both of them together, but you know, it is what it is. However, if you have, you know, limited budget, then just go with symptoms because these symptoms really don't lie.
Yeah.
I think somebody who has like a history of estrogenic cancers and you really want to manage that part and prevent it from happening again, I will say find the funds to invest in testing and make sure, especially the metabolites are properly broken down. But, you know, if you're just like having, for example, fibroids, I mean, do you need to go around and test, especially if you don't have the funds? I don't think that's necessary, but what I'll definitely do is implement the protocols and then go back and get another, you know, sonogram or, you know, whatever is the diagnostic tool used, your doctor uses and get it tested again and see. And, you know, most women after 2-3 months of following the protocols, combining with supplements, you know, they come back, they go back to their doctors and it's like, it always amazes me. I'm sure you've seen this before, how the doc goes, oh, your fibroids have shrunk. It's just the size of a pea now. What it was like a walnut before. Whatever you're doing, keep doing.
Yeah.
And then the patient is like, don't you want to like know what I did?
Yeah, exactly. No kidding. I know. Yeah. Or yeah, your periods are lighter or your ovulation pain has disappeared. Someone was asking about ovulation pain. That's definitely a sign. And, you know, Magdalena, I feel like we should also talk about the fact that when your hormones are imbalanced like this, like you have an estrogen dominant situation happening, that's just sort of a messenger. It's not like that's the actual problem. There's something causing the estrogen dominance. Like it's not as if that's what you're technically treating.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah. And one of the things I see with hormones is like, it feels like the hormones is the last stop on the bus, you know? You've gotten on the bus much earlier on. And that basically the earliest symptoms of deficiency, especially, things like being deficient in magnesium, being deficient in vitamin C, being deficient in zinc, having a highly inflammatory diet that just inflames you all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And including eating foods that are supposedly healthy, but like, for example, if you have a histamine problem, right? And you are just like, you know, chomping down kombucha and all the fermented foods, and the more you get them, the sicker you get, right? Histamine drives up estrogen dominance in a huge way too. So is really dialing in a diet that really works for you, and you know, being really mindful of that. I think this is a really great starting point. And I can see there's a lot of people asking here about exactly what supplements to take. And so I don't know how much time you want to spend on that. You have supplements. I have supplements also. Hey, you guys, it's all like in the book too. I know you sell supplements too.
Oh no. I mean, I don't have a supplement brand or anything anything like that. But yeah, no, you should definitely talk about that. I feel like everyone wants the solutions. So maybe we'll start with the food and then we talk about the supplements and what makes sense for people.
So I wanna share with folks there is what I call the hormone balance healing pyramid.
Yes.
And so the pyramid is really about how do you rebalance your hormones. Really talks about, as you can see at the bottom here, I know it's upside down, I'm sorry, but it's or you know, whatever, it's flipped. But it says food, okay? And it says first and always. And as you can see, this is the foundation of your pyramid. Then it says herbs. So I just mean like herbs that you culinarily add to your diet, not like, you know, going out there and like getting herbs from Brazil or something. That's not necessary. Supplements often, right? And then medications here and RX prescription, that includes bioidentical hormones as a sort of like a last resort. So So if you really think about it, like if you don't have your diet dialed into something really nice and anti-inflammatory and high in nutritional value, it's going to be always really hard for you to, for the supplements to really work. So I just want to make it really, really clear. Supplement, you have to remember that a lot of us, and analyze your own thinking about this, right? If you're looking for just a supplement you want to go and buy, it's like, and you consider it a better option than doing prescription drugs, then let me just say it is a better option, but you're still going in the pill mentality, meaning, we've been trained for generations right now that it's a pill. We live in a pill culture. You've got a headache, you take a pill. You don't want to get pregnant, you take a pill. You've got anxiety, you take a pill, right? And so when you're taking, so you're like, okay, I'm better than that. I don't want to do prescription, but what's a supplement? But you're actually, you're actually going in the same mentality we've been trained all these years. And so supplement alone, I can't tell you how many women are spending, $500-600 a month on supplements, and it still isn't working for them because the diet isn't working. Their gut is compromised. Their liver function isn't. They're not sleeping optimally, right? So just be very mindful of that. Whatever I'm going to say about supplements, it only works when you combine it with a really good diet, anti-inflammatory diet, high nutrient value diet. So, I think some of the classical supplements on estrogen dominance specifically is talking about, helping you with estrogen metabolism, right? So that will be the classical would be, a lot of times people take DIM, and that's a cool one, but DIM upregulates your phase 1 liver detoxification. And a lot of women, and I'm sure you've seen this, Nicole, in your community too, when women take DIM and they either feel better for a while and then it stops, or they take it and they feel nothing, or they take it and they actually feel worse.
Yes.
And the reason that happens is because DIM upregulates your phase 1, but you also have your phase 2 liver detoxification. So you need something that upregulates that part for full estrogen metabolism. And this is where you have other 2 compounds. One is that I like to use, there's different practitioners have different formulas, but I like to use sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is an extract from broccoli sprouts in a concentrated form, and what you want to look for is always a standardized sulforaphane, because sulforaphane is infamously hard to, is very unstable. It gets degraded really quickly. The other thing about it is with sulforaphane is that when we were making our sulforaphane, it became kind of sad, to be honest with you. We found a study that showed that content of sulforaphane in broccoli sprouts can vary from minute all the way to very high. And we couldn't find a theme, meaning organic is going to be higher versus like something that you buy from dodgy sources, unorganic, GMO, being really low on sulforaphane. It just didn't exist. It was just all over the map. Right. And so I'm not saying stop eating broccoli sprouts. Absolutely not. I think they're just amazing through and through. You want to make it, that's part of the superfoods that my book is full of broccoli sprouts in pretty much in every recipe. However, if you are having serious symptoms of estrogen dominance, then I'll suggest look for a supplement that shows you a standardized sulforaphane content in it, like 6 or 7%, or, depending on the manufacturer. So, and then like ours also contains vitamin C, and which helps absorption of sulforaphane. And you also might want to look for some enzymes such as mustard seeds that helps absorption and breakdown of sulforaphane. So anyway,
I was going to say really quickly, a friend of mine gave me the tip a long time ago to put mustard seed powder on my broccoli to help it to help the compounds be absorbed and utilized better. So I was like, cool.
There's a conversion that happens. And so I'm not gonna, talk about this now, but we need to follow that for conversion. So basically, so that's that. And sulforaphane is amazing, you guys. I mean, there is I remember the first reason why I was so amazed by it and so fell in love with sulforaphane and broccoli sprouts was because there's this research I found that showed that sulforaphane kills cancer cells in estrogen receptor positive breast patients and cancer patients. And I thought, like, wow, how amazing this little tiny broccoli sprout is to be like this is a cancer. It goes like, it kills it. It's so amazing.
It just shows us that we have a lot of the solutions. We just don't even know sometimes that they're there. Yeah.
So that's sulforaphane, and calcium deglucarate is another form of that I really like to upregulate your phase 2 liver detoxification. And in liver 2 liver detoxification, you have the sulfation pathway, the glucuronation pathway that clears estrogen, and these two supplements can be really helpful. So those are the I will say the trio that helps you with estrogen metabolism specifically. So DIM, sulforaphane, and calcium deglucarate. But peripherally to all of this, it's like, you know, if you're deficient in magnesium, especially women, lumpy breasts, very terrible PMSs, right? A lot of constipation. Then, you know, adding some magnesium was going to help you tremendously. B vitamins, unless you can eat, you know, eating meat on a regular basis, and especially organ meats like livers, some pate, B vitamins can also be incredibly helpful with that. I also like vitamin C because vitamin C, you know, I actually up to my vitamin C, because this is during COVID, right? We're living in. So I up to my vitamin C to about 1 to 2 grams a day. And ever since I did that, you know, I'm 48, so I'm going through perimenopause right now. My luteal phase became shorter and shorter. So that's one of the signs, you know, you're kind of entering that phase.
Yeah.
So from ovulation to my period, instead of being full 14 days, it kind of went down to 12 days, and it went down to 10 days. And then ever since I started taking vitamin C, went back to like 14 days, which I was like, oh, sweet. I mean, I'm kind of like, oh, it's kind of nice to be done with my period at some point. But you know, it was just nice to see that the vitamin C can really play a role. Zinc is another really great one. Unless you do oysters on a regular basis, you know, zinc can sure the immune system, everybody knows that, but zinc is essential in rebuilding your gut mucosa. And so for people with IBS, which many people with hormonal problems have, but I also like zinc because it is also one of the key nutrients for progesterone. So, you know, some of the basic supplements that you can really take alongside a really nice clean diet. I personally take all of them because that really makes a big difference in how I feel.
Yeah, same. I actually do some of those too. And I was going to say, I'm so glad to know that you have sulforaphane in your lineup, because I recommend it a lot. And the only one I've ever found on the market is the Thorne Research one. And so now I know. That's really good to know.
Yeah.
And I spelled it for some people, and someone asked, is that different from indole 3-carbinol? Do you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So so I still prefer sulforaphane much more. One of the reasons is that it doesn't give you nausea and vertigo, which the other one does. And also, like, you are not dependent on the conversion anymore. It does, especially if it's combined with vitamin C and the enzymes, the mustard seed enzymes that are coming from the mustard seeds, that really helps with breaking the conversion to actual pure sulforaphane. So your body's not dependent on anything else. So for that reason, I prefer that a lot more.
Yeah, I would say too that the IC3, it needs stomach acid in order to be broken down. So if you have stomach acid issues, IC3 might not be the best option. So, I mean, just so everyone understands too, like DIM and sulforaphane are breakdown components of the IC3. So,
right.
Yeah, I would say I agree with that completely. I think that that's something too. There are so many questions. It's pretty amazing. Estrogen dominance is clearly a huge problem, everybody. Someone said they just ordered your book. That's awesome. So everyone was asking too, what's the name of the book? It's called Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. And it's just, Magdalena's just published it. And it's a beautiful Bible. So I just want to see what other people are asking about. Endocrinologists are the worst. Nothing's wrong that a pill can't fix. Girl, don't we know it? Yep. Yes, I will be posting this. It will be in my IGTV, and it will have captions because I've learned how to do that now. It's like a deal for me. Okay, so I see like a bunch of things. So, she was asking about herbs. So someone just asked about herbs you recommend, and you're an herbalist. So I feel like you've got a lot of thoughts on this.
Yeah. So, it's interesting, like even in the world of herbalism, it's like I belong to a number of forums on herbs, of course, right? And even herbalists, I still, catch a lot of people posting that, for example, I have hair loss. Which herb should I add to prevent the hair loss or to reverse hair loss, right? Or I have period problems. What herb is going to take it away? And so it's a kind of, especially in the world of herbalism, I think it's a very unfair question, because again, you're just replacing an herb instead of doing a pill from a medication, right? You're just replacing it with an herb. And the way herbs works is that it's really, you want to go more upstream and ask the question, what's causing the symptom in the first place? So for example, if you're losing hair, is it because you have a low thyroid problem? Do you have estrogen dominance that's going on? Are you deficient in biotin, maybe some B vitamins that cause the hair loss? So it's really identifying, go more upstream to figure out what is the problem, right? So with herbs, it's kind of, that depends on what is going on. And so for example, I'm not gonna talk about like, what's the one herb that you can do for, okay, well actually let's talk about it. So like, for example, let's just say you have heavy periods, right? Okay. So with heavy periods, one of the things that really helps are anything that's astringent. And one of the amazing things about herbs is that if you take if you are taking an herb that is an astringent, for example, yarrow, right? Something that most of you are probably passing by, you're going on walks, hikes in the nature, and you see this little tiny white flower. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google that right now. Yarrow, so Y-A-R-R-O-W. And the leaf as well as the flower is highly astringent, right? So the body is so amazing and the herbs are so amazing that it knows that it's not going to astringe you anywhere else. It's going to be astringent towards the blood flow coming into the uterus, right? So that you don't have such a big outflow of blood when you're having a very heavy period. So is yarrow the solution for heavy period? I mean, temporarily for as it happens, it could be, but we are not asking the bigger question here, right? And that is, what's causing my heavy periods in the first place? So this is where you want to go more upstream and start looking at estrogen dominance, right? So maybe I'll talk about what are some of the herbs you can add to help you with estrogen dominance. And guess what? The answer is that estrogen dominance is largely the organ that really helps with breaking down those estrogens, especially the clean and the dirty ones that I talked about earlier, is your liver. So then, let's then break it down and say, what are some of the herbs you can do to support your liver? And I have all the herbs. Actually, I want to open this up on the liver chapter because I've divided those herbs into various different types of that you can do to supporting your, let me just take a look at.
Yeah, no, go for it. Because I was going to say too, what I love about the book is that, just so everyone knows, there are protocols for different conditions. So everyone asking about that, obviously we can't go into each one on this, but you can definitely get it and you'll find all of that information. So each chapter has a protocol for, each of these major conditions that a lot of us are talking about right now. And the book is called Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. And her name is Magdalena Wszelaki.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
So for those of you who are getting the book, is on page 92. So there is a whole sub-chapter that talks about liver herbs. And it says herbs are incredible liver allies in nuanced ways. There are those who can move the liver, meaning they can regenerate and protect the liver. And here are a few of my favorites. Mild liver herbs: burdock root, St. John's wort, but not if you are on antidepressants, calendula. Liver stimulants is dandelion root, chicory root, endographis, Oregon grapefruit. Liver protectors, right? So things like turmeric, schizandra, milk thistle, and licorice are protectors. So, one of my favorite ways, and we have a recipe here on page 345 for you, which is called the liver tea. It's a decoction. Decoction means that you boil it for a little bit longer than a regular tea. So let's take a look at the recipe. So in the recipe here, 345, so it's a few more pages. We have dandelion root or burdock root. Then we have milk thistle, turmeric root, and schizandra, which is one of my absolute favorite herbs. And then you just put it on the stove for 20 minutes and you make a decoction out of that. You can drink it over the course of a few days. So that's your liver tonic, right? So you're not addressing, let's say, your fibroids specifically with this solution, but you're just going more upstream and supporting your liver overall. And guess what? It's probably not just going to help your estrogen dominance, but it's probably going to help your allergies. We are going into an allergy season right now. Mm-hmm. The liver is largely, when it's overtaxed, you start reacting to a lot of allergens. And so, your bee pollen and all the pollens from the trees and all that is not they are bad. It's just your body is overtaxed and is reacting to a lot of these androgens. And so, so it's
so good that you just said that. I like what you just said about you're not addressing the the estrogen so much as you're addressing the problem that's causing the estrogen problem. So and that's what everyone needs to know. And someone's just asking, she asked before to repeat the name of the mushroom for the melasma.
Oh, tremella. So it's Tremella, tremella. But again, you guys, don't get caught up in just, you know, putting tremella on your face alone without making any other changes, because it's on its own is not going to work. Exactly. Tremella, there you go. Yeah, Nicole just posted it.
But someone's asking, where do you get the liver tonic? Magdalena just explained this. She just talked about it. It's a recipe in her book.
It's a recipe. Yeah.
So you have to put it together.
Maybe let's address the, like, where do you get your herbs from? So you can get your herbs from. I would encourage you to support your local herbal stores if you find one near you. Like, I live in Boulder, Colorado, and we have like one place called Rebecca's Apothecary, and so it's all wonderful. She focuses on local herbs, and as much as we can. Of course, like, we can't get turmeric in Colorado, but we can get like calendula and a lot of other herbs here. And then, then you have online. I mean, you can get on Amazon from a lot of really great organic sources, like different co-ops like Frontier or Star West. There is also mountain rose herbs that you can order from smaller quantities. So there's a lot of different options. Just focus on organic, sustainably harvested herbs, and you start making your own. There is also another. Can I just talk about like teas, herbal teas?
Oh, definitely. Let's do it. Yeah, let's go for another 5 to 7 minutes or so and talk about that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So, if you're really like completely into herbs, and this is like really over your head, I totally get that. And so the easiest thing to do for you to walk into a health food store, right? And these days you have like a whole aisle of different herbal teas, and look for the herbal tea that's like for liver detox or for detox, but just make sure that it doesn't have any laxatives in it, right? But it's got, you find things like I said, the burdock root, maybe artichoke leaf, all the bitter qualities, right? A lot of times you find licorice in those. You'll find so burdock roots, dandelion roots, right? Calendula. Those are the really great liver supporting herbs. And then just follow the instructions on that. If you're more serious about herbs, or you find that these tips have been helping you somewhat, you want to kind of take it a level higher. I'm personally not a fan of tea bags, just because, for two reasons. One is that a lot of times the tea bags, the paper used is bleached, and so you're kind of incorporating bleach into your body, and that's never a good idea. But the second one, which is more, it's not problematic, but it's just, you're just not getting the maximum value of those herbs, because these herbs have been cut up to very small pieces, so their surface area of the plant is exposed to the maximum in order to make a quick infusion. So you just go like 10 minutes tea bag, right, and you expect a miracle tea. But the truth is that when those herbs are cut up like that, they get oxidized a lot quicker. So what most people don't realize, and that's one of the things that I remember, learning about in the herbal school. It's like, from the time the herb is picked to the time you actually finds it to your kitchen can be as long as 2 years. And on average, it is 2 years. Because you have sorting, you have customs. Most of the herbs don't come from the United States because US is too expensive. So we buy herbs from Poland and Bulgaria and, Russia and all the China, right? And even if they're organic. And so by the time they come in, and then they go through wholesalers, they go through packaging, they go through customs clearance, all of that stuff. And then they put on the shelf, and it depends on from the time it's put on the shelf to the time you buy it, is who knows, right? So these herbs are never like super fresh, and it's not like I don't want to sound like a snob here, but really it's like, I've been to my friends' houses and opened a bottle of herbs, and I'm like, what is this? Like, it's got no scent. Right? Versus you buy a fresh herb, especially you buy always herbs in pieces, like in chunks or full, like cinnamon, you buy a whole cinnamon stick and then grind everything or chop it up freshly. And when you open up your grinder and you just ground up those herbs, like there's this incredible smell that comes at you, right? And you're like, wow. And guess what? Those volatile oils, that's the smell, and that's the medicine in it. Herbs that don't smell are dead, and they're not gonna give you the desired result. So this is the reason why, I don't want to be sounding like a snob, but I'm just really purely approaching it from a place of getting the maximum result.
Not waste your money.
Don't waste your money. So this is the reason why, like, if you see Actually, let me just take you on like a little super quick tour. So
Yes,
see,
we want to see.
like this is my whole, you know, herbal collection. I mean, this is just section of it, right? And you know, I keep my herbs full. So like cinnamon or dong quai or dandelion root or burdock root and all that, I buy them in chunks. And then if I'm using that in whatever recipe, then I'll pound it or I'll put it through a grinder to really get the maximum medicinal compounds out of them.
That's so awesome. That's so helpful. I have no idea.
Really?
Yeah, now I really need to check that out and start growing my own now that I have a yard. That's so helpful. Okay, someone is asking about a super itchy scalp. That really, I don't know that has anything to do with low or high estrogen.
No,
that's a whole other problem that we probably can't deal with on here. Is there anything else that you want to share, Magdalena, before we wrap things up really quickly? Just in terms of like what, you know, the fact that this is, again, such a misunderstood, frustrating issue, and especially it's the fact that it's not, you know, really validated when you go to your doctor, and where people should start.
Yeah, sure. Do you talk a lot about cruciferous vegetables on your calls with your audience? You do. Okay, so you guys already know your cruciferous vegetables. Yes. I would just mention a couple of other foods that are mentioned here in the book in the liver chapter that really support the liver, and that's your broccoli sprouts, flaxseed, which is really interesting, and I don't think we have the time, today to talk about it, but flaxseed, even though it's estrogenic, it actually helps you with estrogen dominance, so let's just leave it at that. Anything that's fiber rich, I especially like resistant starch kind of fiber. Dandelion, both leaf and root, are amazing. Anything bitter, you guys, is actually really, really good for you.
Yeah, by the way, I loved that tip on the podcast that you were talking about, just incorporating more of the bitter herbs and getting rid of lettuce.
Did you get my bitters?
Yes, I did. They're right here.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to try them. Yes.
You haven't tried them yet, have you?
No, because I managed to just get to the post office this week. So anyways, I'm about to try them. I'm so excited because I didn't know you could do before meals and after meals. That's so cool.
So, you know, like in, for example, in France, when it's before a meal, it's called a digestive.
Right.
Apéritif, where after the food is a digestive, right? And so you absolutely can. And it doesn't have to be, you know, one or the other. You can do both, or you can do one or the other. That's fine. Yeah. So another one is iodine-rich foods. And that will be things like kelp, also known as kombu. Iodine really has an amazing efficacy for your brain, for your ovaries, as well as the receptors in the breast for iodine. The only precaution is that if you do have Hashimoto's disease with positive antibodies, please do not load up on iodine. That's never a good idea. Mm-hmm. Anything that's high in sulfur, so onions, garlic, leeks, chives, scallions, all of them are sulfur-rich foods that helps your sulfation detoxification pathway in the liver that also clears up your estrogen. I love pomegranates. Oh my God, pomegranates are just like my absolute favorites. If you go to my website, hormonesbalance.com, there's a video of me taking pomegranates out that just takes like literally below a minute, all seeds, and it's not the water method. They're so awesome. Turmeric, and then beets is another really cool one. And the last one I'll just leave you guys with is that when you're adding a lemon to your lemon juice, like say if you're squeezing a freshly squeezed lemon juice, right, from a lemon or lime, don't throw away the rind. Make sure that you get a grater, the micro grater, and then just grate a little bit of that zest into your dressing or on top of your fish or steamed vegetables or whatever it is, because the zest contains D-limonene, which is also one of the compounds that helps you to detoxify your liver. So just, apart from amazing flavor, which I think is very underestimated, the zest, it can really help your liver too. So don't throw away. Just make sure that you have, you use organic lemons or limes for that, for if you're zesting. Okay, that's it. That's what I got.
Those are amazing tips. Amazing tips. So so everyone, Magdalena makes amazing supplements. Not only the herbs, you also have actual supplements you were talking about. People are asking where they can find you and all the things. So I would love for you to just share that with everybody.
Yeah, so my website is hormonesbalance.com. That's the educational part of the website. Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, the book itself can be found on Amazon. You can get it there, straight there. And then all my supplements are on Wellena, wellena.com. So it's WELLENA. .com. That's where we have our supplements. Many of them we talked about here. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Hormones Balance with a capital
hormonesbalance.com.
A. I like that.
Dude, it just capitalized it. I have no idea why. That was so weird. Hormonesbalance.com, everybody. And then Wellena is WELLENA. And then, of course, overcomingestrogendominance.com as well, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yay.
Amazing. Thank you so much. You're a wealth of knowledge. This was so great. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait to hang out with you and have like get in the kitchen, and I think you and I will have a lot of time. We'll have a really great time in the kitchen. Then we should do an Instagram live from
I really want you to cook for me. That's my plan. I'm inviting you to visit so that you can make amazing food for me, because clearly, I mean, this recipe book is just so beautiful. I mean, your first one was so incredible, and now this one, I see even more great ones that I'm excited to.
They're simpler recipes. I will say, like, you know, and just for those of you who are thinking that, oh my gosh, it's like another cookbook with a lot of difficult recipes. You know, if I learned something from my first book is to really simplify everything, and the recipes contain on average 5 to 6 ingredients. Of course, not counting salt and pepper, but just key ingredients. And then when I was working with it, with my recipe developer, I said to her, I don't want more than 30 minutes active time in the kitchen. So that's how we build those recipes. So they are nutrient packed and super supportive of estrogen dominance, but they're also simple and quick. And we have a lot of modifications using Instant Pot. So really, you're just minimizing your active time in the kitchen and go and do better things than cooking.
Right? I know. Live your life, people. Yeah. All right. Magdalena, thank you again. We will talk soon. And everyone, thanks for tuning in. This will live on my IGTV. So we'll talk to you all soon. Bye.
Thanks everyone for your questions.
Bye.